Welcome to the archives of Hanging with the Haters. Boy, you picked a good one, but if perchance this doesn't float your boat, check out another one. We're loaded. And don't forget, we're live every Wednesday at noon on www.irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5 and 106.1. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are hanging with the haters. How does it feel? I don't know. It's really something else. By the way, we are broadcasting live downtown Conroe. And, Kay, it seems like we haven't been here a while. And truth be told, and, Kay, we're into telling the truth, aren't we?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. We were, by the way, it's Mark and Kay. That's my darling wife, Kay, who's subbing for Ed McMahon, who usually is... well, he's dead, Kay. I'm sorry.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway,
leave the man alone.
Last week, y'all heard a what we call reruns, but it was from our archives when we had the Alligator Man.
I call him the Snake Guy.
The Snake Guy. Oh my gosh! Yeah, Jerry was. Anyway, we replayed his episode, and Kay and I were in Washington D.C.
Boy.
We were gone 8 days, and I would have told y'all about it, but I didn't want, people like our neighbors, Virginia and Freeman Plyler, what they would do. They've got access to our house. They know our security codes and all, and they would come in and they would just make themselves at home and steal our refrigerator stuff.
Didn't we just say something about the truth?
The truth? Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, hey, Kay, before we get much into today, we are going to talk about the trip to Washington, D.C., fascinating stuff. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, do I have any cashew nuts under the counter? No. What you're really, the second thing you're thinking is, do I care to hear somebody talk about a trip? Folks, this was a fascinating trip, and you're going to learn some stuff about the haters in D.C.
Well, if you haven't been, we can certainly advise you on some of the details that you might want to know.
And Kay, if they have been, they probably won't even recognize Washington, D.C. coming out of at least my mouth. It's really something. By the way, we are going to talk about what's going on this week. Plus, I got a shout-out for Frank Valero. Ladies and gentlemen, he's an ex-student of mine, and he emailed. I put on Facebook that we're going to be on the show, Kay, and he said, hey, good, that gives me something to listen to while I eat lunch, and I thought that was so sweet.
Well, that is. Hello, Frank.
He's probably joking.
It's always so nice to hear from one of Mark's ex-students.
Isn't it?
And know that they're still alive and well, and he didn't mess them up too much.
I don't know how many are infirmed or are incarcerated, but anyway, that's true. Anyway, stuff that went on this week, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Washington, D.C. trip, and we'll have at the end a joke and a story, fascinating story, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, this week in review. Kay, on the trip to Washington, D.C., the whole time I was thinking, wow, this is fun, and I did have an enjoyable time, but I kept thinking when we get back.
There's homeowners, there's always a to-do list, a job jar.
And Kay, ours is extensive. And you know something? Most of them are expensive. We got stuff to do.
Yeah, we rewrote it yesterday.
We did, and it was long. By the way, we've had a roof leak for a long time. It's a metal roof, but we've got a caller, Kay. I will stop myself in mid-sentence if we've got a caller, and I'm fascinated by that.
Okay.
Hey, caller, you're here on Hanging with the Haters. This is Mark. Kay's across from the aisle.
Hello, caller.
If you don't mind giving us your name and telling us what you would like to talk about.
Yes, sir. This is Special Agent Walt Skinner with the Transportation Security Administration.
The TSA?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It seems that you recently traveled from Bush Intercontinental Airport to Hartsfield Jackson, and you was selected for a Level 4 safety net security examination, but due to technical reasons, it did not take place. And what I'm going to need for you to do is to go out to the Houston Intercontinental Airport and submit to a Level 4 security examination. It's a rigorous full-body examination done by trained volunteers.
Hey, Agent Skinner, you, all due respect, sir, but they they didn't do the cavity search or anything, but I went through the metal detector, and they wanted me.
Like four times.
They wanted me a couple of times. They singled me out. And really,
well, you were selected for this level 4 security examination, but for some reason there was a glitch in our system, and you were allowed to pass through unmolested and detected. And so we would like to clear up our records, and so what I'm going to need for you to do is go out to Houston Intercontinental Airport and present yourself for a full-body cavity search.
Wait, Agent Skinner, I don't like those things. Look, we've taken the trip. The trip is over.
His doctor did something like that recently. Can we get a note from him?
It was really bad, too. But no,
we have specially trained volunteers who are able to perform this. It will take a maximum of 30 minutes. No. You will not be inconvenienced, and your government would appreciate it.
Oh, I'm still washing the underwear and all from the trip. I really don't have anything appropriate. What about, say, late March, something like that?
Well, sir, as a retired individual, it would be unfortunate if those monthly checks from the government were to run afoul and get lost in transmission. So we're hoping you'll cooperate with the federal government, but if you don't, we have ways to help you out. See the light.
Okay. We've got your number here, and I don't mean that, Skinner, that I know, but we've got a phone number, and I need to get in touch with you, because do you do other people this way? I don't, I've never heard of it.
Yeah,
that's privileged communication. We're not allowed to discuss other matters outside of this particular issue.
I never expected.
So, you got the information. Okay. We'll be expecting you. I'll be on the line looking for you, sir.
Okay.
We're going to check with our congressman, and we'll get back to you.
All right. Which terminal, by the way?
Terminal A.
Terminal A. Okay. I'll be there in spirit or in person. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you now.
Yeah. That was, ladies and gentlemen, Walter Skinner.
Go Obama. See ya.
Yeah.
Speaking of security,
yeah,
we really didn't have any issues.
We didn't.
Getting on the planes, and we had to do a layover in Atlanta in both places, so we were on 4 different flights. And the security lines were very reasonable. As a matter of fact, the one when we left from Bush, it was practically non-existent.
Right. And we went 2 hours early both times, and I think we got through all the checkpoints in 20 minutes.
But it was still mid-morning. You would have thought that there would have been lines.
I'll tell you, and this was before the 4th of July. It was actually the Thursday before 4th of July. But let me tell you this. I found out that my wallet has a metal plate in it that's very thin. I didn't know, but they say take out any metal, and I took it all out, and I left my wallet in, and he said, you got something else in your in your pockets? And I pulled out my wallet, and I went through, and it did okay. Kay, what did you say it was?
It's a thing to keep people from stealing your credit card information out of your wallet, because it's like a barrier, a metal barrier.
Well, what do you call this wallet, the flat one?
Wonder Wallet?
Wonder Wallet, folks. I highly recommend them, except they got a metal plate in them. Anyway, by the way, there was one. When you go to the airport, they do the metal search, but when you go in these museums, and I didn't learn this until I think our second to the last museum, they want everything out of your pockets. And Kay, I've got to tell people, when you go on a trip or anything, I've got 2 words for you. It might be one hyphenated word. I don't know, but cargo shorts. Cargo shorts. They're pocketed things. You got pockets all over.
Yeah.
They're great for a trip because you can stick maps in them and menus and all of this stuff.
Cell phones
and moon
in
rocks.
there.
And the thing is, you end up looking like a guy that works on a kangaroo ranch, or a guy who sells marbles.
Yeah, poofy leg.
So I'm sitting there emptying all my pockets, and we went to a museum in Kay. Right before we went, she bought her a sandwich and a giant cookie. It was bigger than most big.
It was a white chocolate macadamia.
And I told her, I said, Kay, you're not going to eat it now. Let's come and get it later. She said, no, I want it now. So she put it in a napkin, and it's huge. She stuck it in her purse, and the first thing we see at the Aeronautics and Space Administration was this sign that says no food or drinks past this point.
Right.
And so
I said, stick this in one of the pockets in your cargo shorts, because they're going to look in my purse. They did. They did security screens.
Yeah, and that just broke my heart, Kay. And I said, no, Kay, look at and it's too big. And anyway, I stuck it in one of my biggest cargo thing, and there it is, a big wad in my pocket.
Oh.
Hey, it was huge.
It was.
Anyway, I went
flat.
through and I took all my stuff out, and as I came out the other side, this woman looked at me in my shorts, and she saw I had a bulge in my pocket, and she said, "Do you have anything else in your pockets?" And I said, "Well, no, nothing metal." And she said, "Well, what's that in your right pocket?" And I fumbled. They're hard to get out, Kay. And I finally wrestled out this big cookie, and she laughed.
Yeah,
like
she did.
My thought was she's going to take it from me because no
Yeah.
food or drinks, and she just laughs to get out of here. And
She didn't say get out of here. She
didn't.
said go on through.
She was very sweet.
Yeah.
I liked her. But that was, anyway, I felt like an idiot. Not that I don't usually. But that was about the trip.
I'm sure we weren't the only people who tried to smuggle a cookie
Oh, my gosh.
into the museum that
Kate,
day.
Cindy Cochran, she's got the Cindy Cochran Show right here on Ireland
Hi,
Star.
Cindy, yes.
Every a day at 10 o'clock, every weekday at 10 o'clock. And that woman, when she goes to the movie, she carries, fried chicken inside her purse and
Honey, you don't need to be
soda pops.
saying this stuff.
They don't. They don't recognize her because she goes in what you call your cognitos. But that's another pair of cargo pants, incognitos.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and if she went to this museum, Kay, there's no telling what she would have in there. And here I am with a big cookie, and I get caught. I guarantee you Cindy Cochran would not get caught. That woman has something about her that she can sneak through. A dear friend of mine, but one of those bring stuff in.
Well, I
that
have
you're
been
not
known to
supposed
stick
but-
a thing of M&Ms in my purse.
Okay, that's legal.
Because I can get them for like 99 cents at Walgreens, and they're like $3 or
Okay,
something.
we
at the
shouldn't
movie.
be jipping the
Okay,
movies.
all right, I'm done.
Okay, can I talk about one thing before we get into our trip? Please, can I please?
Okay.
Okay, D.B. Cooper. Ladies and gentlemen, Kay and I spent 4 hours, actually not a complete 4 hours, but I don't know if you're aware, but there was a segment on the History Channel about D.B. Cooper.
A documentary.
A documentary. It was in 2 parts. It was 2 hours one day and 2 hours the next. And it was...
Do you want to remind people who D.B. Cooper is?
Oh,
Would you like
yeah.
me to do that?
Yeah, go ahead, Kay.
Yeah, he's the guy that hijacked a plane that was going from Seattle to Portland, Oregon, back in November of 1971. He demanded a $200,000 ransom and 4 parachutes. And they gave him the money, and he told them he wanted to go to Mexico. They had to stop over in Reno. And somewhere between Portland and Reno, he lowered the stairs. He picked that particular plane because they did have stairs that would lower from the bottom, and he parachuted out of that sucker and has not been seen since, to anybody's knowledge.
Yeah, 45 years. By the
Yeah.
way, you said something that really struck a note in my head, and it was, and here it was. Those are called parachute pants, not cargo pants, I don't think. Anyway,
doesn't matter.
that's right. But yes, he did, and it's been a mystery. And by the way, what you may not know, you've heard, its name wasn't D.B. Cooper. Here's what happened. He wrote on this ticket, Dan Cooper, and some newspaper guy, printed out, I don't know how or why, he put D.B. Cooper, and for whatever reason, that reporter must have been read very wide and far because they started calling him D.B.
It's been
Cooper.
DB ever since, even
Yeah.
though it's incorrect.
900 people confessed to being D.B. Cooper, and I happen to know a lady who said she was married to D.B. Cooper. What the show was about is 2 gentlemen, one ex-reporter and a guy who was an investigator or something. He might have been with the police for a while. But they investigated for a total of 5 years, and they found a guy that they said
They
there
thought was
93 pieces of
yeah.
evidence that he is D.B. Cooper, and this whole series was about that. And I don't want to give it away, which I give it away now. But I would tell you this: you might have seen on the news that the FBI have now closed the case. They said there is no way, if you confessed and said, yes, I'm D.B. Cooper, unless you can show the parachute or the money that he left, he asked for very brilliantly 4 parachutes. It makes them think, wow, he's going to get some other people to bail out with him. We can't kill them, so we better give him a good parachute. And they gave him 4 different ones, and he picked the one that was the best for, I mean, you wouldn't know by looking at it, but
Yeah.
they said if you're in the military, that is the parachute you're going to
He
use.
called it the pit bull of parachutes,
Yeah.
one of the investigators
Yeah.
did.
Anyway, he used that, and he bailed
No
out.
parachute was ever found. No body was ever found. The money has never been found except for
5,700 and something bucks.
that was found on a riverbank.
Buried on a riverbank 42 miles away from where they think he bailed out. And it was just under sand, and it had new...
It was deteriorated.
What Kay said.
It was found 6 years or 9 years after the event.
Right, 7, I think.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. Anyway, and it had rubber bands that were newer than the money was. They weren't as rotted. And so somebody put almost $6,000 there, and to this day, people don't know why. And that is...
So I'm thinking, D.B. Cooper can just come forward now. I don't know what the
I do too,
consequences
and
would
the
be.
guy should come forward, I think. You know what we need to come forward with right now, Kay?
Break time.
It is break time, ladies and
Yep.
gentlemen. You're listening to Hanging with the Haters. When we come back, Washington, D.C. is going to be on our minds. Ladies and gentlemen, back in a couple of minutes.
Break time, people. Restrooms are in the foyer. Back in a couple of minutes with more Hanging with the Haters.
Lone Star Community Radio is FM. That's right. Set your radio dials and your button presets to Conroe's FM 104.5 and 106.1, coming in June of 2016. To celebrate this edition and the addition of video versions of our talk and music shows on YouTube, cable TV, and Our City TV, we are offering special sponsorships rates, which include free audio spots that are played throughout our broadcast. Interested? Check out our sponsor rates for shows just like the one you're listening to online at irlonestar.com/sponsor or call the station at 936-647-5747. Reaching the people of Montgomery County with Montgomery County's community radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
And the winning ticket number is 47218. Now, back to Hanging with the Haters on irlonestar.com. Yeah.
And this is Kay Hater. We're glad you're hanging with us today.
Really, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit this morning about our trip. We just got back on Friday from Washington, D.C. We'd never been there before.
I was too scared to go, Kay.
And, anybody that looked at us walking down the street knew without any doubt that we were tourists.
Oh, my goodness, just one look. And one giveaway is when you've got your nose touching a map, and you're wearing shorts like I'm wearing, and you're wearing those parachute pants. But, Kay, one thing about the trip, we mentioned the airports. I wanted to say about our luggage. It was, if it's 50 pounds, if it's an ounce over 50 pounds, they charge you an extra $100. Well, when we took off, it was under 50 pounds.
Yeah, it was like 48 pounds because we weighed it before we left.
When we came back, it was 3 pounds.
53 pounds.
53 pounds.
Yeah.
But 3 pounds overweight. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, and this guy was putting it on. I don't even know if I should say this. I won't say the airlines. But this guy came over as he's weighing it, and he just whispered to me like, oh, my gosh, the cops are around. And he said, your bag is 3 pounds overweight, and I'm supposed to charge you $100 extra, but I'm going to let it go. Just be careful with that. And so, I almost kissed him on the mouth, and I tipped him $5. But holy cow, that was nice of him. Darnan did it. That's the person we went with, and the guy said, you're overweight. She said, oh, yeah, and slapped him. No, said, your bag is overweight. And she said, well, is there something I can take out of it? And he said, well, I guess so. And so she took out some stuff. And
well,
he said,
that's what
enough.
I was getting ready to say. I will find 3 pounds worth of stuff to put in my carry-on.
But, there's a crowd behind, or there's people behind you. Anyway, that was that. But anyway, we made it through, and there are so many things we could tell you about. One thing I'd like to start off with, Kay, is the fact that the people we saw were so nice. I was scared to go to Washington,
Everybody, D.C. At the airport, at the restaurants, at the hotel, at the museums.
Right.
Very, very nice.
Really?
At the National Mall when we went to see the, war memorials and the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Memorial. I mean, they have the Park Service people are there. And, Yeah, even if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, they're just so kind. You need to stay behind that line, please.
Yeah. Kate,
you know?
You remember we went to the science, was there a science? What was it?
The
Natural.
The Natural Science Museum.
And that lady, Barbara, Betty? Anyway, they're volunteers.
Yes.
There was a 19-year-old boy volunteering to walk around and to, greet people when they come in. They're unpaid. And my thought was, that's volunteering. My thought was, I'm not going to do that. Stand in there, and for what? Well, just to make sure people have a good time.
Yeah,
in the
we had a nice little visit. She was a retired teacher, so had a little conversation about teaching. She was just lovely.
She was a
just
doll.
Lovely.
And, mostly the children were in there, and, she has to talk to children all day. So she seemed to enjoy talking to grown-ups. That was neat.
We saw some very cool stuff.
Yeah. But overall, people were great. We even went to the baseball game. Did y'all know Washington, D.C. has a baseball team?
Yes, it's the Nationals.
It's the Nationals, and they call them the Nats. I was listening to the radio, and they said the Washington Nats, are going to Cleveland, and my thought was, okay,
and
what does that mean?
You know how at the baseball and football games they have like a mascot out there in a big costume with a head on it and stuff, and they run around and do stuff?
Exactly.
Well, at the Nationals games, it's the presidents, and they've got Washington and Lincoln.
One looked like Jefferson.
And because he looked a lot like George Washington.
The one that doesn't belong was Herbert Hoover. One of them was Herbert.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean,
anyway,
he even said on the program, Herbert.
They were running.
I think Theodore was out there.
They ran around and. Yeah, it was very cool.
By the way, their heads are as big as their bodies, so what you see is a head going
with
and
a little body. It's kind of like a bobblehead, but.
And what they do, and isn't this fascinating, folks? They have during the seventh inning a race, a president's race, and these 5 large head presidents run, around the outside of the ball. I mean, inside of the ball field, and this time Lincoln won by tricking people, and I don't know who wins each game, but I don't understand
Tricky
why they do
Abe.
it. Yeah, but it was an interesting game. It went into extra innings, and we left because of that. And it took the Nats a long time before they could get it to extra innings.
As we were walking into the game, Dardan, who's our sister-in-law.
Oh, she was so sweet. She's the
Dardan
reason
Hayter.
we took the trip, by the way.
Yeah, she was a delegate for the National Education Association convention, and she invited us to come along if we wanted that opportunity, and she even signed us in as guests, so we were able to spend some time in the convention, which was great. But, the Texas delegates, they wear Texas wear. Mm-hmm. And she was wearing a big old Texas shirt. And as we were walking in, this pickup truck went by, and there were some young men hanging out of it whistling. And I'm going, we're old people. Who are they whistling at? Look around. And the guy stuck his head out the window and went, "Hey, Texas."
Yeah, I know. I had no idea we had a reputation.
Like I said, we were treated well.
There were 20,000 delegates. This arena was packed
at the
with
NEA
delegates.
Convention, not at the ball game.
Exactly.
Probably
I am
more.
so sorry, folks, and I do that, and that's why Kay is here. One of the many reasons. And what we didn't have was a space to sit. Because, it's all divided into 50 states. So
well, they did have guest seating.
They did have guest seating, but it was
full.
So what we did is we got to sit among the Nevada delegates because they had a few spare seats.
They
Nevada
had some,
doesn't
what they
need
called
any
unassigned seats. Now, they did say if somebody showed up from Nevada delegation, we would have to give up our seats if they did. But we were able to sit there.
They gave us these clapper things that they call thunder sticks. You blow them up and you hit them.
Yeah, we got to make a lot of noise,
and
they played good music.
Yeah.
And
we got to see Hillary Clinton. That doesn't mean anything to so many of you, but I was actually, Kay, and this is going to get listeners really out of here. I was wearing a Hillary Clinton shirt. I wore it in Washington, D.C., and nobody slugged me. Nobody gave me a gesture or anything. It felt so unusual.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There were some Trump supporters there.
And there were Trump supporters, wearing Trump shirts.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was interesting, and it was a great thing. But, Kay, of the museums, which one did you enjoy the most, do you think?
For me, it's a toss-up between the National Portrait Gallery, and they have portraits of all kinds of people in there, but one section of it is presidential portraits.
Right.
And, I mean, there's the portraits of George Washington that we, when you see a TV program and they're talking about George Washington, they always show portraits.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm standing a foot and a half away from a painting of George Washington from 1805. And, and that's when the lady came up to us and said, you need to stay behind this line. And they had like carpet.
Beige carpet, brown carpet.
And then there were tiles up against the wall, and so you need to stay on the carpet. Well, and she was so sweet, and of course we're going to do that.
Well, I thought she was
But,
sweet.
I mean, the fact that I still was in, I'm not
she
going to
could have
touch it. But
smudged it. She could have done anything.
Yeah.
It didn't have a glass on it, did it?
Yeah, and the portrait of Lincoln,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, JFK,
Kay, one thing I noticed, I didn't say anything about it, but, when I was looking at the pictures, there is a President Millard Fillmore. He was
Yes.
the 13th president. Zachary Taylor died or something, because a guy named Millard Fillmore would have never been elected, but he was vice president.
I don't
one of
know.
these guys. And so, little known Millard, his picture there, and I was thinking, back then, 1840, whatever, somebody's painting this, so could all of them get a really good, you would think.
Good likeness. Yeah.
Michelangelo type stuff. And I was looking at it and I said, this is not, I'm not saying I could have painted it, but you can look at it and say, oh, that looks very simple. Because you look at that and then you go over there and look at George Washington or Abe Lincoln, and holy cow, the hairs you can see, But
Well, the interesting thing about, they had more than one portrait of George Washington in there, and he looked considerably different in each one of the portraits. But when we went to the Museum of American History, they had a bust, a sculpture of George Washington, and according to the little plate with it, apparently they went out to Mount Vernon and did a cast of his face. This is not a death mask, but they did a mask, and the sculptor worked on that. So to me, that means that was probably more like what he looked like than any of the portraits.
Today when they do that, they stick straws up your nose because your whole face is going to be in a plaster, and this allows you to breathe.
I would think they did something similar.
But I don't think straws were invented, Kay. I don't know what they used. Money? Rolled up some dollar bills. I don't know what they did, but it was fascinating.
Don't overthink this.
By the way, Kay, we actually saw George Washington's uniform.
Yes.
And he was tall, 7'8". I made that up. I think it was 6'3". But anyway,
well over 6 foot.
I'm looking at this, what I thought was a portly guy, and Kay, his uniform was a tall, skinny,
slim.
There's no way
Not
he could
skinny,
have worn
but
that.
Slim.
Yeah, that fat Abe Lincoln, George Washington.
And it was
could have.
in beautiful condition. I think that's the thing that touched me the most, was seeing some of the clothing and personal items, like they had Abraham Lincoln's top hat.
Yeah.
That was with his funeral entourage. Is it time for a break?
I think it's time for a break. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you what wasn't there at the museum. You're listening to Mark and Kay on Hanging with the Haters, IRLoneStar.com. Back in 3.
Break time, people. Restrooms are in the foyer. Back in a couple of minutes with more Hanging with the Haters.
Mark and I appreciate you checking out our archives. Don't forget, we're live every Wednesday at noon on Lone Star Community Radio. If you have any questions, please contact us on our Facebook page, Hanging with the Haters.
You're listening to Hanging with the Haters with Mark and Kay on IRLoneStar.com. Punk.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate Clint Eastwood. He had what you call your larynginitis. And,
Larynginitis?
Yeah. Anyway, Kay, we were talking about, I gave a tease before we left, and it was involving what wasn't at the American History Museum, and let me tell you what it was. Benjamin Franklin's bifocals. I wrote an article that was published last Sunday in the Courier, and it's going to be Thursday in the Villager, and I wrote it before we went on the trip, but not wanting anyone to know that we were actually gone. It wasn't published until we came home.
Yes.
And in that I said I'll probably get arrested for trying on Ben Franklin's bifocals. But
they put them away.
There, Kay. It just did not happen.
Well, that doesn't mean they don't have them, but they change stuff out all the time.
Kate, let me say this about museums. Washington, D.C. has too many of them. You could you pick one out. I don't care which one out of the 30-something. There's probably 7 or 8 that are national museums, meaning they're free. The government is paying for it.
The Smithsonian's.
They're free, but if you want water, you got a bottle of water for $3 in there. They're letting vendors water. Okay, we spent more on water than we spent on anything on this trip.
I think we did.
More than the airplane flight.
That's because we did more walking in those 8 days than we've done in the last probably 6 months.
Okay, it hurt my back.
Because we walked
it
everywhere.
Wore me out. I hate to cry. But
it was really cool.
Yeah.
And by the end of the week, we were doing better.
Right. But
Got
here's
a
the deal.
stamina.
You go into a museum, let's say the American History Museum, and I am reading from the very beginning. Holy cow, look at that. Wright Brothers did. Oh, that's the other museum. But wow, George Washington, here's one of the muskets. It's huge, and I'm reading all of this stuff, and finally 2 hours go by, and I'm stumbling around, and then 3 hours go by, and finally I'm just walking, and Kay would say, hey, there's a skull of Benjamin Franklin or whatever, and I say, I don't care. And I would just walk right through because, Kay, I have a threshold of museums, and I missed. I gave up.
Your threshold.
I gave up right before World War II. They had World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
They had them all there, and Kay, I was worn. And if we came back, that meant I would miss the Aeronautical Museum and all of this stuff. And too many museums. Here's what I'm thinking: send some of them to other cities. Just build a column building. All you need is columns. You need to have a metal building
to
with
write
columns.
a letter, honey.
Okay, any one of those museums would draw a crowd in any city. But now Washington D.C., you go. We were there 7 days. I didn't have
they
time.
got so much stuff they could send a whole load, and it's not going to make a dent in what they have.
The stuff that is not on display. Y'all saw Raiders of the Lost Ark. There is a bunch of stuff
There's
back
a warehouse.
there in the warehouse. But 4th of July, Kay, we went there to. My goal was to see fireworks. And
that was what we were kind of the most excited about, was being on the National Mall for the July 4th National Fireworks.
Really, Kay? And, all the time Kay was saying, it's supposed to rain Wednesday. And I said, well, yeah, that's because I'm here.
Oh, well, actually, the 4th was on
Thursday.
Monday.
It was on Monday, ladies and gentlemen. You think I'm an idiot, don't you?
But that's just,
you are so
neither
wrong.
here nor there.
It was on Monday. I thought they should have let them go off on Saturday when it wasn't raining.
And it did rain.
Did it on Saturday? I can't get anything
right. On the 4th.
Oh, it was raining.
Yes.
It was overcast, and we were sitting on this hill. We had the Washington Monument right in front of us, and the fireworks.
Because we walked and walked and walked.
Yeah. And they were supposed to go off between not the Lincoln Memorial.
The Lincoln Memorial and the
monument.
Washington Monument. It was set off between there.
We sit on this hill on an incline. It's one of those things where your shorts ride up on you way too high, like you're getting a giant wedgie right there on the side of a hill.
Little hill.
And we met the people behind us from Rochester, New York.
Yes, another couple, Ben and Sandy Murray from Rochester,
so
had
sweet.
a lovely visit with them because you have to go a little early.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes.
But it was exciting just being in the crowd.
Right. And it had to be exciting being in the crowd because it wasn't exciting when the fireworks went off. I almost wept.
It had quit raining, but the clouds were low.
A cloud landed on us, and all you could hear the pops, and you could see a few things, but up above you could see, okay, it's red. That must have been a red one. That's a blue one. And I think they actually cut it short. I could not hear the music. I was thinking music's going to be along with it. And I don't know if y'all were aware, but if you watched it on TV, what they did, and some of you maybe...
On PBS, anyway.
On PBS. They actually took some cuts from previous fireworks displays in Washington, D.C., and put those among the ones that was overcast. So you'd be watching and say, hey, I can't see that. Oh, this one much brighter. And, Kay, it was because I went there, and my goal was to see a great fireworks display.
Let it go.
I can't, Kay. Let it go! That's, that's true. By the way, that night when I got in, I actually watched New York's fireworks display. Kay, they had 3 barges out there. And
was it Boston or New York?
It was both.
Okay.
I don't know. Might have been Boston, Paktika. But it was just gorgeous, and it was unbelievable. By the way, I wanted to make this one mention. It has nothing to do with the Washington Monument, but we do have, y'all haven't met our new intern here. His name's Cutter. I don't know his last name. I think he's like Cher. His name's Cutter. And I like the name, but he's here, and he's doing so much, ladies and gentlemen, to help out And I'm pretty sure
having
he wants
to learn, all the computer system and stuff for the keeping on the air is daunting. I would think,
especially when you've got me here, Kay. Saying when a break comes or something, it's very hard to figure out stuff. But
we're
Cutter,
barely computer literate.
So. Is it Woodlands High School, or it goes to Woodlands High School? He's a senior, and anyway, many happy returns.
Hoping you're having a good summer, Cutter.
Anyway, Kay, that was what was the other favorite museum you saw?
It was, the Museum of American History.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Kay, where we separated was where?
Well, when I was looking at the First Lady's dresses that they have on display, and... Honey, they had recent ones, Barbara Bush and Laura Bush, and they even had Michelle Obama's inauguration dress for the inauguration ball. Then, but they had Dolly Madison's dress. I mean, she was First Lady
heroine
during the War of 1812. Yeah. If you remember, she's the one that knew the British were coming and cut George Washington's portrait down and hauled it out of there before they burned it.
Yeah. She hid it under her dress. The dresses were big and flowing.
No, she got out ahead of them, but just barely, I think.
Anyway, that was okay. I was really moved, though, at Arlington Cemetery, and I know you were, too. You see the pictures, and I know you hear this all the time. Oh, you see the pictures, but in real life, that's the Grand Canyon. You see the Grand Canyon in pictures and say, hey, that's a pretty big hole, and then you get next to it and say, holy cow, what a hole. I think there's a song. But anyway, you just walk and you see these, they're not crosses. These are, just
they look
little
like
stones.
They look like a tablet that the Ten Commandments would have been written on.
One of the and they're in rows, and just everywhere you look, it's a row of, and you read the names, you see what they did. They've got special insignias on those who, almost said distinguished themselves. And their wives, for a period of time, were allowed to be buried, and their names are on the back of a marble slab, and it's blank on the other side. So all you see when you're looking at these stones are either a few blank ones and the names of the soldiers. But if you get on the other side of the cemetery and look on the other side, you'll see sporadically some wives' names. They don't bury wives there anymore, okay?
Right. They're running, They've got to be very careful with the space that they have left.
We were on our way to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and we saw right there next to the John F. Kennedy's Eternal Flame a grave with Joseph Kennedy Jr.,
Yes, and the oldest brother that died in World War II.
And they don't even have his body. He was on a suicide mission. His job was to bail out of this bomber and let the bomber hit this place where they were building these gigantic cannons and see if it would blow it up. And the bomb exploded as he was just in the air.
Still in the air, huh?
And so he was in pieces. But here is his memorial, Joseph Kennedy, and he's the one that was supposed to be president instead of Jack. But at that point, his old man, Joseph Sr., said, Jack, you're going to be the president now. And that's what happened. Anyway, that was moving. And Kay, the changing of the guards.
At the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Gosh, these guys.
I didn't know all that.
I didn't either.
I didn't know that they committed to 2 years of service, and their barracks are below the area in front of the tomb. And anyway, very, very strict rules of conduct and very strict rules on their dress. I understand it takes them like 4 hours to get prepared and dressed.
Before the changing of the guards, one guy's walking 21 steps. It's 21 steps. You turn around, you wait for 21 seconds, then you turn around and you march for 21 steps and you stop for 21 seconds. Anyway, that guy's doing this, and whenever they're getting ready to change, the leader, who was a sergeant major or something, comes out and he inspects the next guy. And you can see him, and he's sitting there inspecting his uniform and getting right up in his face, and then he takes the guy's rifle. Okay, that was the most extensive search of a rifle I have ever seen, or inspection. And he would take his white gloves and move it in different places just to show, it's clean.
Yeah.
And then everything, he's like a robot, and hands it to him, and then he turns and he starts marching, and the other guy starts marching, and they meet. And one of them steps off the carpet. There is a carpet, and the other one takes up the 21 steps.
How many people do you think were observing? there had to have been a couple of hundred, you think? There was a large crowd, and it's interesting because they do address, the visitors there and tell them we need absolute silence, do not talk, and there are signs in the cemetery reminding you that this is, pretty much sacred ground, and that you need to be very respectful of where you are.
In Kay, I wrote the name down, or the saying on the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers, thinking I would remember it, but it was something about here lies someone unknown who gave his life. Anyway, it was very touching,
Yeah, and it said something that only God knows, the identity.
It was beautiful. And the thing is, you talk about serious soldiers. These guys have a stare about them that is so you look at him and you say, that guy is, he means business. That is who that is. And, to me it was very spectacular. It was
very, very moving.
Yeah,
very moving.
One of many of the great things we saw. By the way, they had a mineral museum, and we actually saw the Hope Diamond.
We did.
Which isn't nearly as big as I would have thought.
Well, it's pretty big, but, it's a blue diamond, but it's not a real clear blue. It's kind of a steel blue, anyway. But we just left the whole Hall of Minerals with all these gorgeous stones.
Okay, my favorite mineral now is corundum. Is that the name of it? Mm-hmm. It is the second hardest mineral, and it is beautiful, so much prettier than a diamond.
Corundum would be your sapphires and your rubies and your aquamarines.
Well,
those are all corundum.
That was really beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, has nothing to do with the fact that we're getting ready to take another break, and I wanted to mention when we come back there will be a story and a joke. Ladies and gentlemen, hanging with the haters, back in a couple.
Hanging with the Haters will be back on in a minute. 2 tops. Don't lose your place.
Want to check out what it's like to be on the radio? Need credit for school? For an internship? Then contact Dick online at dick@irlonestar.com. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, and we are here to be part of the community.
And the duck says, no, but my cat does. Oops. Hanging with the Haters is back on. Everybody's sober up. Hoo-ha!
We're back. I have one more thing to say about D.C.
Let's hear it, Kay.
And then we can go.
Okay, with the joke.
On to something else, yeah. If you haven't been, I really recommend that you go if you're able to, because it is truly a really, really good experience.
We even rode the subway.
We did. We did. And they do have metro buses and that kind of stuff, but we just never got the hang of that. Okay. But anyway.
Kay, we've got a rather extensive story today, but I think it's fascinating. However, we've got the joke first, and once again, the joke is courtesy of Prairie Home Companion, Garrison Kellers, who's retiring show. I don't know if you were aware of that. They're still going to do the show, but
funny.
Just saying.
Funny dude.
Anyway, and the joke goes something like this. What is black and brown and looks good on a lawyer?
Not sure here.
It's a Rottweiler. That is very cruel to lawyers, and I think lawyers get a kick in the face a lot. But, you could change it to anything. They used to have little moron jokes. And
well, here's the deal.
Let's hear it.
I like Rottweilers.
Oh, I do too. So it'd be nice to be, Okay, Kay does like Rottweiler.
And the few lawyers that I know,
they're
but
great.
I know them as on a personal level.
Really?
We haven't ever, thank goodness,
Scott Goldman.
needed
Wow,
one.
I really like it.
They're lovely
and
too.
And he can cook barbecue really well
anyway.
too. By the way, Kay, this today's story comes to us straight from Ferris, Oklahoma. Ferris, Oklahoma, by the way, is a very small town, oddly enough, in Oklahoma. Small town with a big heart. And some people in there that are as interesting as all get out, one of which is Martin Sledge. Kay, last summer, I think it was early August, Martin was using his metal detector out there around Ferris Lake. And the lake was down big time because of the drought.
Yeah.
And many areas, areas around the lake now even had shrubs and stuff growing out of it that used to be fishing grounds.
Used to be the bottom of the lake, huh?
Anyway, Martin's got his metal detector out there, and he's finding, fishing lures and beer cans, and he located 2 outboard motors and one Buick, I think it was an Electra out there. But there's a lot of things, nothing of value, and so he finally decided to go into the area that had been roped off and it was the swimming area that had been roped off. And he just decided, I'm going to just go over there and see what I can find. So he brought the metal detector around, and son of a gun, he actually found a senior ring, a graduating ring, in that lake, and it was corroded as all get out. So what he decided to do was take the ring to Mumphrey Webb. I'm sorry, he's the dentist and the small engine mechanic for Ferris.
Oh, okay.
And he cleaned the ring up, and he told Martin that he said, Martin, this is a ring from Buhler High School. Buhler is 42 miles west of Ferris.
Okay.
And he said, it's Buhler High School, and he says the initials inside, it took me great time and care, but the initials are CD, and it's a boy's ring. And so there is Martin, and he's thinking, I'm not going to go to the trouble of finding this person, so I'll probably just sell the ring and all. And he mentioned it to his wife, Betty, and Betty said, you're not selling that ring. You're not doing anything with it. We're going to find the person. I'm going to find the person.
Good for Betty.
Really? So Betty calls down to the Buhler front office and to the secretary there, who is Juanita. That Juanita is in charge of the entire school district.
Well, most school secretaries are in charge.
Well, she's the entire district secretary. She is the only secretary for the school district of Buhler.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, she heard the story about the ring, and she said, son of a gun, what's the year? And it was 1959, and 1959 ring, Kay, and she said she would look through the yearbooks and find who CD was then, and she said she'd call Betty right back, and she did, and lo and behold, she called back and said there were two CDs, people with initials CD. One was a girl, Charlotte Davis, and the other was a gentleman by the name of Clyde Duncan. And she said Clyde Duncan's cousin, I know this is fascinating, but Clyde Duncan's cousin, Ernie, actually still lived in Buhler. And what Juanita did is contacted him, and he told her that Clyde is now living in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and he there is a tractor parts salesman for Massey Ferguson. And she said he can still be located. So Betty actually got the number on the internet of Massey Ferguson, called, and son of a gun, Clyde Duncan answered. And she said, Clyde, we found your senior ring, and it was in the dried up clay at Ferris Lake. And said, no, this gentleman found it with his metal detector, and we need to get it back to you. And Clyde was very excited, but he said, to tell the truth, that ring is not mine. And she said, well, I don't know who else it could be. He said, well, really, I bought it, but I gave it to Vera Rogers. I was dating her my junior year, and she took the ring. We were very close at the time. I don't know if it's puppy love or what, but she just was a dear person.
To his girlfriend?
To his girlfriend. They were going steady, and she put it on a chain, put it around her neck, and what happened was during one of the outings at Ferris Lake, they were playing water polo. I don't know if you've ever done that, Kay, throwing a ball around.
Volleyball?
Yeah, but you're trying to make a basket.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, she was playing. The chain broke at some point during her play, and she didn't notice it gone, and her ring gone, and the chain, until she was wading out. The people in that lake went around barefooted trying to find that thing for about an hour, and finally gave up on it, and so there it lay for a long time. And Clyde said it's really belongs to Vera Rogers. And Betty said, Clyde, you're not going to believe this, but Vera Rogers still lives in this town. And I don't know if you're interested, but she is not married. She lost her husband, Vern. Vera married a Vern. And she lost him because he became a part-time tornado chaser.
Oh.
And the tornado of 1980 caught him chasing it. And his Nash ended up on DuPont Street, and his remains ended up in a post oak in Wetumpka. It was terrible. So he died, and she never remarried. And Clyde said, son of a gun. He said, Betty said, well, are you married, Clyde? And he said, well, I got married, but I was separated, got divorced 10 years later because my wife, Mona, came to me after 10 years of marriage and said, Clyde, the excitement has left your life and I must find another. And so she left me, and I haven't married since. And Betty said, that is such a coincidence. Says, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to actually contact Vera Rogers, and I'm going to have this ring, and I want you to come and get it yourself because I'm not going to mail it to you. And he says, well, I'll never. He said, okay. Memorial Day. He moves down Memorial Day weekend. He moves down and gets the ring and meets Vera Rogers again. And folks, lights went off, stars shone, and they finally agreed to get married. And they got married on the Saturday before 4th of July. The town blocked off the streets. They had fireworks display. They had a giant cake, and son of a gun. After the marriage, they moved to Muskogee, and they've lived happily ever after simply because one guy happened to get a metal detector and find a ring. It's amazing what little things can do. And right now what we've got to do, Kay, is get out of here.
We got to go.
We've got to go. Hanging with the haters, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Y'all
you.
have been a peach. Talk to you later.
Thanks for checking out this production on Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's radio station. For more information on this show and other shows on Lone Star, check us out online at irlonestar.com. If you're interested in sponsoring a program on Lone Star Community Radio and reaching the local audience of Montgomery County on FM, internet, and TV media, please call 936-647-5747 or contact us online at irlonestar.com. This recording is a Lone Star Community Radio production, produced by the show host and Dick Schisler of Lone Star Community Radio. Interested in volunteering as a music DJ or starting your own talk show? Contact Dick Schisler at dick@irlonestar.com or by phone at 936-647-5747.